They say December in Iowa can break you if you're not careful. The cold seeps through barn walls, freezes the ground solid, makes you wonder if spring's just a lie you tell yourself to keep moving. That particular December started to break me the afternoon my F-250 wouldn't turn over. Dead battery, 15 below, the kind of cold that makes metal brittle and patience thin. I borrowed Diane's Lexus to drive into town. Leather seats, heated steering wheel, that new car smell she loved. I was heading to Brennan Ag Equipment for their Christmas customer appreciation thing. Free coffee, maybe see some neighbors, show my face. Diane said she'd meet me there after showing a property. Except when I pulled into the lot, I saw her already inside. Through the showroom glass, clear as day. Standing next to Cody Brennan by that big John Deere 8R, his hand on her lower back. Guiding her up into the cab like she belonged there. The glove box popped open when I reached for napkins to clean my glasses. That's when I saw the folder. Brennan Ag Equipment logo, red urgent sticker. Inside equipment lease agreement. $240,000, co-signed Raymond L. Hutchins and Cody J. Brennan, my signature. My farm, I never signed a damn thing. I sat in that Lexus for 20 minutes, engine running, heat blasting, staring at the papers. The notary date jumped out, November 18th. Same day, Diane brought home what she called an insurance renewal form. Said it was routine. Just sign here, honey. I'll file it with the agent. Through the showroom window, I watched her laugh at something Cody said, watched him lean close, touch her arm, watched other farmers I'd known for 40 years glance their way, then look at their boots. I folded the documents, put them back exactly as I found them, and drove home. The kitchen table was oak, built by my grandfather in 1947, solid, level. I spread the lease across it the next morning, while Diane poured her coffee, already dressed for work in that sharp blazer she wore for showings. What's this? I kept my voice steady, the way you do when checking a fence line, just looking for the break, not announcing it yet. She glanced over, and for half a second something flickered across her face. Then the smile came, bright and easy. Oh, that. Ray, I was going to talk to you about it. It's an investment. Modernization. That 8R will increase our efficiency by our efficiency. I tapped the signature line. When did I sign this? November. Don't you remember? I brought the paperwork home. You signed it at this table. She gestured with her coffee mug, casual. You were watching the Hawkeyes game. Kind of distracted. But I signed an insurance form. It was attached. The dealership bundles their documents. She sat down across from me, reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold. Ray, I know it seems like a lot of money, but Cody explained the financing. The lease payments don't start until February, and the tax benefits alone. Her phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up. Cody. She pulled her hand back, declined the call. He's just following up on paperwork. I looked at her, really looked. The woman I married 6 years ago, after Sarah died, the woman who brought laughter back into this house, who said she loved the farm, loved the quiet, loved me. Her eyes slid away from mine. How long? I asked. How long what? Don't. She stood, grabbed her purse. Ray, you're being paranoid. I'm late for a showing. We'll talk about this tonight, okay? Calmly. The door closed behind her. Her perfume, something expensive new, hung in the air, mixing with the coffee and the faint smell of last night's wood stove ash. I sat there until the coffee went cold. Then I did what I always do when the world stops making sense. I went to the soil lab. The shed sat 50 yards from the house, built the year I took over from Dad. Shelves of sample jars, decades of records filed in metal cabinets, the smell of damp earth and chemicals. Little Ray, my border collie, followed me out, settled by the space heater with a sigh. I pulled on my work coat and gloves, grabbed the soil probe and sample bags. The ground was frozen solid. Took 3 tries to get the probe 6 inches down in the northeast field. The core came up dark and dense. I bagged it, labeled it, December 4th, 2024, NE46 depth. Back inside, I ran the tests. pH 6.8, perfect, same as it had been for 60 years. Some things don't change, no matter what happens in the house. I opened the filing cabinet, pulled the USDA records. Every soil test since 1964, filed chronologically, cross-referenced by field section. My handwriting for the past 43 years. Dad's before that. Grandpa's neat script going back to the beginning. On top of the stack sat an envelope from First Farmers Bank. I'd set it aside 2 weeks ago, meaning to look at it. Loan renewal notice. Due March 31st. I opened it now. The farm loan, $340,000. Taken out to buy the back 80 from my uncle's estate 10 years ago. Manageable payments. Good terms. Rita Kern, at the bank, had handled it herself. Knew our family since she was a kid. I read the fine print. Both borrowers must sign renewal documents. Both borrowers must maintain clear credit standing. Any additional liens or encumbrances must be disclosed. The shed was cold, but I felt colder. I pulled out my phone, looked at our joint bank account, scrolled back through November. There, A $40,000 transfer to an account I didn't recognize. Authorization Diane M. Hutchins. Little Ray whined, sensing something wrong. I sat at my workbench, surrounded by 60 years of careful records, and realized I'd been keeping track of the wrong thing. I'd measured every inch of the soil, documented every pH shift, filed every test with the precision Dad taught me. But I never thought to check the paperwork on my own wife. The space heater clicked and hummed. Outside, the wind rattled the shed door. I looked at the USDA files, at the decades of my family's work, and pulled the records for the South 40, the section where Diane said that tractor would be most useful. Soil type: Tama Silly Clay Loam. Load-bearing capacity: 18,000 pounds per axle, maximum when dry. A John Deere 8R weighs 22,000 pounds. That tractor would sink into this ground like a stone in water. Tear up the tile drainage we'd spent 3 generations maintaining. Any ag agent would know that. Any dealer should have checked. Unless checking wasn't the point. The coffee at the grain elevator was always burnt by 7 a.m., but that's where Marion County farmers gathered before the day started. I pulled in the next morning, needing to hear other men talk about corn futures and equipment repairs and anything but the papers sitting on my kitchen table. The bell over the door jangled. 5 men sat at the corner table. Earl Dietrich, Jerry Voss, who owned the place, 3 others I'd known since high school. The conversation died when I walked in. Earl looked at his coffee cup. Jerry wiped the counter that was already clean. "Morning," I said. "Ray." Well, as Earl nodded, didn't meet my eyes. "Coffee's fresh." And it wasn't. But I poured a cup anyway, added cream from the little tin pitcher, listened to the silent stretch. Finally, Earl cleared his throat. "Ray, we saw Cody Brennan's truck at your place Thursday. Big delivery, looked like. Figured you were upgrading equipment." "No delivery scheduled," I said. Jerry set down his rag. "His F-350's been there a lot lately, Ray. During the day, when you're usually at your doctor appointments or in town." The burnt coffee tasted like ash. "How long?" "Couple months, maybe." Earl finally looked at me. "We thought, hell, we didn't know what to think. None of our business except..." He trailed off. "Except everyone's business becomes everyone's in a town this size. Except these men had known me since we were boys, working our father's fields. Except they'd watched me bury Sarah, watched me marry Diane, watched me try to keep this farm going into my 7th decade. Appreciate you telling me." I set the cup down, headed for the door. "Ray." Jerry's voice stopped me. "Whatever's happening, we're here." I nodded, couldn't trust my voice, and left. Marcus Webb's truck was in my driveway when I got home. The old Ford Ranger with the surveyor's equipment rack on the back, same truck he'd driven since the 90s. He was sitting on my porch steps, 2 coffee cups from the good place in town, steaming in the cold. "Figured you could use better coffee than Jerry's burnt shit," he said. I sat down beside him, took the cup. Marcus and I went back 50 years, longer if you counted being in the same one-room schoolhouse. Went to Korea together, came back together, stood up at each other's weddings. When his marriage fell apart 20 years ago, I was the one who helped him move his stuff out. Never asked questions, just showed up with my truck. We drank in silence, watching the fields stretch white under morning frost. Finally, he pulled something from his coat pocket. The lease documents. Diane must have left them on the table. "You want to tell me about this?" His voice was gravelly, careful. "Nothing to tell. She says I signed it. Can't remember doing it, but the signature looks right." Marcus unfolded the papers, pulled reading glasses from his shirt pocket, studied the signature line. Then he reached into his truck, came back with a magnifying glass from his surveying kit, bent close to the page. "Ray, look at this." I leaned in. Under magnification, the signature showed a double impression, 2 overlapping marks, slightly offset. "That's carbon paper technique," Marcus said. "Someone puts a blank document under the one you're signing. The pressure transfers. You sign the top page, thinking you're signing one thing, but your signature goes through to what's underneath." He set the magnifying glass down. "I've seen it in property fraud cases, usually with elderly folks." The cold seeped up through the porch boards. "She tricked me." "Yeah." Marcus folded the papers. "Question is, what else is she tricking you about?" We went inside. I showed him the bank transfer, the loan renewal notice, everything. He listened without interrupting, the way good friends do. When I finished, he pulled out his phone, made a call. "Tom, Marcus Webb, need a favor." One of those quiet legal questions. He paused. "If someone co-signs an equipment lease using joint property as collateral, can the other party void it unilaterally?" Another pause. His face went hard. "Both parties have to agree." "I see. Thanks." He hung up, looked at me. "You can't cancel it without her signature. It's binding until the lease term ends, or both of you agree to void it." 3 years, I said, seeing the term length in my memory. Payments start in February. $2,800 a month. On top of your farm loan payment. On top of everything. I sat down heavy in my chair. Little Ray put his head on my knee, worried. Marcus stood, walked to the window, stared out at the land. There's something else in that folder, Ray, buried in the back. I'd missed it earlier. A trifold brochure, glossy paper, land appraisal services, and behind it, a handwritten estimate on professional letterhead. Hutchins property, 180 acres, prime development potential. Subdivision estimated value, $1.85. The number sat there like a stone in my chest. She's not buying equipment, Marcus said quietly. She's measuring the property for sale? Marcus made more coffee while I sat at the kitchen table, staring at that appraisal estimate. The number wouldn't leave my head. $185 million. More money than Dad saw in his whole life. More money than I needed or wanted. Money that meant nothing if it came from selling the land Grandpa cleared with mules and a plow. Tell me about Cody Brennan, Marcus said, setting a fresh cup in front of me. 34, maybe 35, came to Marion 3 years ago, runs Brennan Ag Equipment out on Highway 30, does well enough, always has the newest models in the showroom, sponsors the county fair. Where from? Illinois, I think. Someone said he had a dealership down there, sold it or something. Marcus pulled out his phone, started typing. The coffee maker gurgled and hissed in the silence. Little Ray's tags jingled as he shifted position by the wood stove. Here. Marcus turned the phone toward me. Cody J. Brennan, operated Brennan Farm Equipment in Galesburg, Illinois, 2018 to 2022. Business license suspended following regulatory violations. He scrolled. Doesn't say what kind of violations, but he closed up shop and moved north. So, he's done this before. Something like it? Marcus set the phone down. Ray, there's a case from back in '87. Old farmer named Hostetler, over in Keokuk County. Dealer sold him a combine too heavy for his soil type. Thing sank 8 inches into his field, destroyed a whole drainage system his family had laid in the 50s. Hostetler sued under the Iowa Agricultural Equipment Suitability Act. Never heard of it? Most people haven't. Section 54E8 says dealers have a legal duty to verify equipment is appropriate for the land conditions where it'll be used. If they don't and damage occurs, the sale or lease can be voided. Marcus leaned forward. Ray, if your soil records show that tractor's too heavy, they do. I checked last night. Load capacity on that ground is 18,000 pounds per axle when it's dry. That 8R is 22,000 easy. Then Cody Brennan violated state law when he wrote that lease. Marcus stood. I'll walk your property lines tomorrow. Something feels off about that appraisal. But Ray, he paused at the door. This gets ugly from here. You understand that? I understood. Marcus had been through his own divorce, knew what it cost when a marriage turned into a legal battle. But I also understood that some things were worth fighting ugly for. The land doesn't leave me, I said. People do. He nodded, put on his cap. I'll be here at 8. The next afternoon I drove to First Farmers Bank. The building sat on Main Street, red brick from the 1950s, with photographs of local farms covering the lobby walls. My grandfather was in one of them, standing in front of a brand new John Deere in 1959, young and proud. Rita Kern's office was in the back. She'd worked at the bank for 30 years, started as a teller when she was 19. Her family had a small operation west of town until the farm crisis in the 80s nearly took them under. Dad helped negotiate their debt relief, got them through it, Rita remembered. Ray, she stood, shook my hand, gestured to a chair. Good to see you. What can I do for you? Need to talk about my loan renewal. In account security. Her smile faded. Is there a problem? I told her about the $40,000 transfer, about the lease I didn't authorize, about March 31st coming fast. She listened, typed something into her computer, frowned. I can put a hold on transfers over $5,000, she said. Requires both signatures for anything above that threshold. It's within policy for accounts with multiple borrowers approaching renewal. Would that have stopped her before? Rita hesitated, glanced at her office door, lowered her voice. Ray, Diane tried to add Cody Brennan as an authorized user on your account last month, said it was for farm business expenses. I denied the request, told her both account holders had to be present for that kind of change. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere in the building, a phone rang. Did she say why she wanted him on the account? Said he was helping with equipment purchasing decisions. Made it sound routine. Rita folded her hands on her desk. Ray, there's something else. About 6 months ago, another woman called asking about Cody Brennan. Wanted to know if he'd had any accounts here, if we'd had dealings with him. Wouldn't give me details, but she sounded... Rita paused. Scared and angry. Area code was Illinois. You remember her name. She wouldn't say. Just asked if we'd heard anything about his business practices, and when I said I couldn't discuss other customers, she told me to be careful. Said he had a pattern. A pattern. The word hung there like smoke. Rita printed out the account hold authorization, slid it across the desk for my signature. This takes effect immediately. And Ray, your credit is spotless. 40 years of on-time payments. Whatever's happening with Diane, your standing with this bank is solid. I signed the form, stood to leave. Rita walked me to the lobby. My dad still talks about what your father did for us, she said quietly. We don't forget that kind of thing around here. Outside, the winter sun was already dropping toward the horizon, 4:30 and getting dark. That's December in Iowa, daylight rationed like everything else. I got home just before 5 to find that John Deere 8R sitting in my equipment barn like it owned the place. Massive green machine, pristine paint, cab glass reflecting the late afternoon sun. 2 men in Brennan Ag coveralls were unhooking it from a flatbed trailer in my driveway. Cody Brennan stood by his F-350, clipboard in hand, dressed in pressed khakis and a company jacket. He smiled when he saw me, the kind of smile you give customers, not neighbors. Mr. Hutchins, perfect timing, just delivering your equipment. So I walked past him to the barn, looked at the tractor blocking the space where my old Case IH usually sat. My chest felt tight. I didn't authorize delivery. Your wife did. Signed the acceptance form this morning. He held up the clipboard. Diane's signature, neat and confident. Everything's in order. We'll do the orientation next week, show you all the features. Get it off my property. The smile stayed, but his eyes went flat. Sir, this is leased equipment. The contract's valid. My company has the right to deliver according to the terms outlined in... I said get it off. One of the delivery guys shifted uncomfortably, looked at his partner. Cody's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, dropped his voice. Mr. Hutchins, I understand change can be difficult at your age, but this tractor represents a significant upgrade to your operation. Diane's been very forward-thinking about modernizing the farm, and I have to say, it's refreshing to work with someone who... You're not working with anyone. You're trespassing. Actually, I'm not. He tapped the clipboard. Section 12 of the lease agreement grants the lessor, that's Brennan Ag Equipment, the right to inspect, service, and maintain the equipment on site at reasonable intervals, which means I can be here anytime I need to be, Mr. Hutchins, legally. The delivery guys were already in their truck, engine running, not wanting any part of whatever this was. Cody handed me a stapled packet of papers, maintenance schedule, service requirements, contact information. First service in 30 days, he said. I'll be back. He climbed into his F-350, backed out slow, made eye contact with me the whole way. The diesel engine faded down the driveway, leaving tire tracks in the frozen mud. I stood there in the cold, looking at that tractor in my barn, feeling like my own land had been stolen while I was standing on it. Inside, I called Diane. Straight to voicemail, called again, same thing, texted, we need to talk now. The reply came 20 minutes later, in showing, can't talk, we'll be home late. She came home at 9:30. I was sitting at the kitchen table with the maintenance schedule, the lease agreement, and a pot of coffee I'd been nursing for hours. Little Ray lifted his head when the door opened, didn't get up. Ray, I know you're upset, she started. Sit down. Something to my voice made her stop. She set her purse on the counter, sat across from me. Her makeup was fresh. Her clothes didn't smell like house showings. They smelled like restaurant air conditioning and wine. When were you planning to tell me about the subdivision plan, I asked. Her face went blank for half a second. I don't know what you're talking about. I slid the appraisal brochure across the table. This was in the same folder as the lease. Land appraisal services. $1.85 million for subdivision development. Right, that's just, I had them do an estimate for planning purposes. It doesn't mean, planning what, selling my grandfather's farm? It's our farm. Her voice went sharp. I've been your wife for 6 years. I've lived here, worked here, invested my career in this community. I have a right to think about our financial future. By forging my signature? By letting your boyfriend deliver equipment I never wanted? She stood up fast, chair scraping on the floor. He's not my boyfriend. Cody is a business associate who's helping us modernize an operation that's been stuck in 1980 for way too long. I never signed that lease. You did. November 18th, right here at this table. I signed an insurance renewal. The lease was attached. I told you that. But her eyes slid away, and I knew she was remembering the carbon paper, the trick, the calculation. My phone buzzed on the table. Text from Marcus. Check your email. I'm going to bed, Diane said. When you're ready to discuss this like adults instead of acting like I'm some kind of criminal, let me know. She left, her footsteps on the stairs, the bedroom door closing. the house settling into cold silence. I opened my email. Marcus had sent a photo, property boundary markers, the kind surveyors use for development planning, bright orange flags on metal stakes, planted along the southern edge of my land. The email said, "Found these today, subdivision markers dated November 2024. Someone's already planning the cuts." That night, I couldn't sleep, went downstairs around 2 a.m., but made coffee I didn't need, stood at the kitchen window, watching darkness sit on the fields. The weather radio crackled, ice storm warning, starting tomorrow afternoon, continuing through the weekend. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the text thread between Diane and me. Months of brief messages, running late, pick up milk, love you, normal marriage talk, nothing that showed the rot underneath. Then I noticed something. Her iPad was charging on the counter. The same iPad we shared for weather reports and grain prices. I picked it up, unlocked it. She'd never changed the passcode from the default. Her message app opened, and there, right at the top, Cody Brennan. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't, but I did. The messages went back months, hundreds of them. And the recent ones, from this week, made my coffee taste like poison. Cody, once we subdivide and sell parcels 1.2 mm minimum, 60-40 split like we agreed. Diane, what about us after? You said, Cody, let's focus on the transaction. Romance was always secondary. You understand that, right? Diane, I thought, Cody, the old man won't know until closing. By then it's done. Stay calm. The ice storm hit the kitchen window like thrown gravel. The lights flickered once, twice went dark. The heating system died with a mechanical sigh. I sat there in the blackness, holding that glowing screen, reading message after message, her asking about their future together, him redirecting to property values, sale timelines, splitting the money, her slowly realizing she was a tool, not a partner, both of them stealing from me while I measured soil pH and checked weather reports and believed my wife when she kissed me goodnight. Outside, trees started cracking under the weight of the ice. Sharp sounds like gunshots in the darkness. The house got colder by the minute, and I realized I was trapped. Storm coming down hard now. No power, no heat, no way to leave, and nowhere to go if I could. Just me and the truth, frozen in together. The power stayed out for 3 days. Ice covered everything. Trees bent double, power lines down across half the county, roads impassable. I stayed in the kitchen mostly, feeding the wood stove, rationing the firewood I'd cut last fall. Little Ray stayed close, nervous about the trees cracking outside like the world breaking apart. Diane was upstairs. We'd spoken maybe 10 words since the storm hit. She'd asked if we should try to get to town, find a hotel with power. I'd said the roads were ice. She went back to her room. On the second day, I sat at the kitchen table with candles burning, reading those text messages over and over. Not because I needed to, I had them memorized now, but because I kept hoping they'd say something different, that I'd misunderstood somehow. But you can't misunderstand. The old man won't know until closing. I thought about Sarah, my first wife, 32 years together before the cancer took her. She knew this farm like I did, understood why certain fields got planted first, why you didn't mess with the drainage system Grandpa installed. When she died, I thought that kind of partnership was done for me. Thought I'd work this land alone until I couldn't anymore. Then Diane showed up at a church potluck, bright and alive, laughing at something Pastor Glenn said. 6 months later, we were married. Too fast, people said. She's too young, they said. But I was lonely, and she seemed to love the farm, and I didn't want to spend my last decades eating frozen dinners alone. Turns out lonely was better than this. The third morning, I heard a truck engine outside, chains on tires, grinding slow through the ice. Pastor Glenn's old Suburban, 4-wheel drive, pushing through where nothing else could. He knocked, came in without waiting for an answer, stomped ice off his boots, brought a paper bag of food from the church kitchen, sandwiches, thermoses of hot soup, battery-powered lantern. Roads are hell, he said, but I figured you'd need supplies. We ate without talking much. Glenn had that way about him, comfortable with silence, didn't need to fill every gap with words. Finally, he set down his coffee, looked at me straight. Ray, whole town's talking. About Cody's truck. About the equipment delivery. About how you don't look right lately. He paused. You want to tell me what's happening? Or you want me to just sit here while you figure it out? So I told him. All of it. The lease, the messages, the subdivision plan. Showed him the texts on the iPad. He read them slow, face getting harder with each line. Lord have mercy, he said quietly. Ray, I'm sorry. Yeah. You know what you're gonna do? Fight it, legally. Marcus thinks there's a way using state equipment regulations. That tractor's too heavy for my soil. Any ag agent would know that. If we can prove Cody knew and sold it anyway, the lease could be voided. Glenn nodded. That's the smart play. Clean, legal. He poured more coffee from the thermos. And Diane? What about her? She made a mistake, a bad one. But, Ray, reading those messages seems like she got used too. Cody played her same as he's playing you. So she signed away my family's land, Glenn. She did, and that's between you and her, and I'm not saying forgive her, but I am saying, he stopped, chose his words. You could burn it all down, expose her publicly, make sure everyone knows exactly what she did. Or you could fight for the land and let the rest speak for itself. What's the difference? Dignity, Glenn said. One way, you're a wronged man getting justice. Other way, you're just another bitter husband making a scene. And outside, something cracked loud, a big branch coming down. Little Ray whined. I just want the farm safe, I said. Don't care about the rest. Then that's your answer. Glenn stood, gathered his things. Storm's breaking tomorrow. Power should be back by evening. You need anything, you call me. And Ray, whatever you decide about Diane, you don't have to decide today. After he left, I sat there thinking about what he'd said. About dignity. About the difference between justice and revenge. The candles burned down slowly. The wood stove ticked and creaked, and I realized something. Cody was betting on me being too old, too tired, too beaten down to fight smart. He'd seen a lonely widower who remarried fast, figured me for a fool who'd sign anything his younger wife put in front of him. He was half right. I had signed. I'd been distracted, trusting, stupid. But he'd forgotten that fools keep records too. When the power came back the next evening, the first thing I did was go to my soil lab. Pulled every file I had on the South 40, the section where that tractor sat waiting. Soil composition tests going back to 1964. Load-bearing capacity studies from when we installed the drainage system in '82. USDA conservation compliance reports from every year since the program started. 60 years of data, careful, documented, filed in triplicate. Every test showing the same thing. Tamasilty clay loam, maximum recommended equipment weight 18,000 pounds per axle when dry, less when wet. That 8R weighed 22,000 pounds empty. At a full fuel tank and ballast weights, you were pushing 25,000. I photographed every document, scanned the critical ones to PDF, made backup copies. Then I called Marcus. Power's back, I said. You available tomorrow? What do you need? Walk the property with me, full survey. I want to document exactly where those subdivision markers are, and I want photos of any damage that tractors already caused. Meet you at 8. I hung up, made one more call. The attorney Tom that Marcus had mentioned. Left a voicemail outlining the situation, asked for a consultation about Iowa Agricultural Equipment Suitability Act, Section 542.8. Then I went upstairs. Diane's bedroom door was closed. She'd moved to the guest room during the storm, neither of us acknowledging it. I stood outside for a moment, heard her talking on the phone. Quiet voice, maybe crying, maybe calling Cody, didn't matter. I went to my room, pulled out the old file box from the closet, found what I was looking for. The original deed to this property, signed by my grandfather in 1947. Raymond Hutchins, same name as me. 3 generations of us, working this dirt, keeping records, doing things right. I wasn't going to be the one who lost it. The window showed darkness, but not the complete black of the storm. Stars were coming out. The ice was melting, running off the roof in steady drips. Spring wouldn't come for months yet, but the worst had passed. Some things just had to freeze solid before they could thaw clean. Marcus showed up at 8 sharp, survey equipment in the back of his truck, thermos of coffee on the passenger seat. The temperature had climbed to just above freezing, warm enough for the ice to melt, cold enough that the ground stayed hard. We walked the property lines, starting at the southwest corner. Marcus set up his transit, took readings, marked coordinates on his GPS unit. Every 50 yards we found another orange flag. Subdivision markers, professional placement, the kind developers use when they're already planning the cuts. 12 total, Marcus said, photographing each one with his phone, making sure the GPS coordinates showed in the frame. This isn't preliminary, this is final survey work. Someone paid good money for this. When do you think they were placed? See how the stakes are rusted at the bottom? Not new, but not old. I'd say November, early December. He pulled one up, showed me the oxidation pattern, right around when that lease got signed. We walked to the South 40 where the 8R sat. The ground was softer here, always had been. Closer to the creek, higher water table. Marcus knelt, pushed his fingers into the soil. Still saturated from the storm, he said. Ground like this, that tractor's gonna sink. Already has. I pointed to tire tracks leading from the barn to the field edge. Deep ruts, 8 inches down in places, cutting across the old tile drainage lines. Cody, or one of his guys must have moved it during delivery, wanted to test the turning radius or something. Marcus walked the tracks, photographing, measuring depths with a tape measure. At the field edge, he stopped, crouched low. Look at this. The tile line was cracked. I could see where the tractor's weight had crushed the clay pipe, collapsing the drainage system my father and I had installed 42 years ago. Water was pooling in the depression, creating a muddy sinkhole. That's $500 of damage right there, Marcus said. Minimum. And it'll spread if we get spring rains before this is fixed. He took more photos. Video too, narrating what we were seeing. Then we walked back to the barn, and I showed him the maintenance schedule Cody had left. Says here first service is February 3rd, Marcus said. That's 3 weeks out. He'll be back on your property, contractually authorized, to inspect and maintain this equipment. Over my dead body. Ray, listen to me. Marcus set down his phone. That lease gives him legal access. You block him, he can claim you're violating the agreement, might even give him grounds to accelerate the payment schedule, or claim you're damaging his equipment through neglect. The barn smelled like diesel and old hay. Little Ray nosed around the tractor tires, uncertain about this massive thing invading his territory. So what do? We file with the equipment board. Today. Marcus pulled out his phone, started typing. I've been researching Section 5428. Here's what it says. Agricultural equipment dealers shall verify land suitability prior to sale or lease of machinery exceeding standard load tolerances. Failure to verify constitutes negligent business practice and may render contracts voidable. Can you prove he didn't verify? Can you prove you kept records that would have shown him the problem if he'd asked? I thought of the filing cabinets in my soil lab. 60 years of documentation. Yeah, I can prove that. That afternoon, Rita from the bank called. Ray, I wanted to give you a heads up. Cody Brennan's been in the coffee shop next door, holding court, telling people you're trying to back out of a legitimate business deal because you're... She paused, uncomfortable, because you're not fit to manage the farm anymore. Says you're confused, bitter about aging, acting erratic. My hand tightened on the phone. He say anything else? That Diane's been trying to modernize the operation, and you've been resistant. That she's had to handle all the business decisions because you're not capable. Rita's voice went hard. Ray, I know that's bullshit. Your loan payments have been automatic and perfect for 40 years. Your account management is cleaner than most people half your age. He's trying to discredit me before I can challenge the lease. That'd be my guess. She paused. There's something else. Remember that woman who called asking about Cody last year? The one from Illinois? You found her? Better. She found me. Saw Cody's dealership name on social media, reached out. Her name's Patricia Brennan, his ex-wife. I sat down at the kitchen table. What'd she say? That Cody tried the same thing down in Galesburg. Targeted an elderly farmer named Hostetler, got close to his younger wife, sold them equipment they didn't need on land that couldn't support it. When Hostetler figured it out and tried to back out, Cody claimed breach of contract. Took the farm to the brink of foreclosure before the state board shut him down. And the regulatory violation on his license. Exactly. Patricia said Cody's pattern is always the same. Find older farmers with younger wives or girlfriends, romance the women, push equipment sales, and leverage the relationship for financial gain. He's good at it. Charismatic, makes people feel special, makes them think they deserve more than farm life. Rita's voice softened. Ray, I'm sorry, but you should know what you're dealing with. Is Patricia willing to talk? Go on record? She said, if it helps stop him from doing it again, absolutely. She'll send documentation from the Illinois case. Emails, complaints, the state board decision, everything. After I hung up, I walked to the grain elevator. The coffee shop was half full. Earl and Jerry at the corner table, a few other farmers I'd known my whole life. The conversation didn't exactly stop when I walked in, but it got quieter. I poured a cup, stood at the counter. Jerry wiped down the espresso machine, not looking at me. Here Cody's been telling stories about me, I said to the room. Earl cleared his throat. Ray, you know how it is. People talk. They do. So let me give you something to talk about. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos Marcus had taken. This is tile line damage from that tractor Cody delivered. Cost $500 to fix, maybe more. This is my soil records showing load capacity. This is state law saying dealers have to verify suitability before they sell. I held up the phone so they could all see. Cody Brennan sold me equipment that's destroying my land. Equipment I never wanted and didn't properly authorize. And he's been on my property with my wife while I'm at doctor's appointments. The room went dead silent. Now, you can believe I'm a confused old man, I said, or you can believe 60 years of documentation and the evidence of your own eyes. Either way, I'm filing a complaint with the Iowa Agricultural Equipment Board tomorrow, and we'll let them decide who's telling the truth. I set down the coffee cup, headed for the door. Earl's voice stopped me. Ray. He stood up, walked over. We're with you. What do you need? The complaint took 2 days to file. Marcus helped me compile everything. Soil records, photos of the damage, USDA conservation reports, the lease agreement with its carbon paper signature trick. We included Patricia Brennan's documentation from Illinois, the state board decision, email chains, between Cody and the elderly farmer's wife, the pattern. The Iowa Agricultural Equipment Board assigned an investigator, woman named Sarah Chen, Worked out of Des Moines. She called on a Thursday afternoon, all business. Mr. Hutchins, I've reviewed your complaint. This is substantial documentation. I'd like to schedule a site visit next week, and we'll need to set a formal hearing date. How long does this process take? Typically 60 days from complaint to hearing. But given the timeline of your loan renewal, March 31st, correct? I can expedite. We could schedule for March 29th, 2 days before the loan came due, 2 days to prove my case or lose everything. That works, I said. After I hung up, Diane appeared in the kitchen doorway. I hadn't heard her come downstairs. She was dressed for work, makeup careful, but she looked tired, older than she had a month ago. Ray, can we talk? About what? She sat down across from me, hands folded on the table. The same table where she'd brought me that insurance form. The same table where we'd eaten breakfast together for 6 years. I know what you think, she said, about me and Cody. But Ray, it's not... She stopped, started again. He made me feel like I mattered, like I was more than just someone's wife on a farm in the middle of nowhere. You were my wife. I was your second wife, Sarah's replacement. Her voice cracked. Do you know what that's like? Living in a dead woman's house? Sleeping in her bedroom? Hearing people compare me to her at church? Sarah would have done it this way. Sarah understood farming. Sarah was perfect. I wanted to argue, but couldn't, because she was right. I'd never taken down Sarah's pictures, never stopped talking about how Sarah used to organize the accounts, how Sarah planned the planting schedule. I'd been trying to recreate what I'd lost instead of building something new. So you signed away the farm, I said. I thought, she wiped her eyes. Cody said we could sell it, move to Des Moines, that I could focus on my real estate career, that you'd be happier not working so hard. He made it sound like I was helping you. By lying to me? By making a decision, which you never let me do. She stood up, anger flashing. Everything here is the way Dad did it, or the way Grandpa did it. I'm not allowed to change anything, suggest anything. I'm just supposed to be grateful. I got to marry the great Ray Hutchins and live on his precious farm. But you could have talked to me. I tried. Last spring, I suggested selling the back 40, maybe buying a smaller place, something manageable. You acted like I'd asked you to shoot little Ray. The dog's ears perked up at his name. He looked between us, anxious. That land's been in my family since 1907. And it'll be in your family when you're dead, Ray. But what about while you're alive? What about living instead of just maintaining? She grabbed her purse, headed for the door. I made mistakes. I know that. Cody, her voice broke. He used me. I can see that now. But you used me too. As a replacement. As free labor. As someone to keep you from being alone. The door closed behind her. The engine started, tires crunching on gravel, fading away. I sat there for a long time. Coffee going cold, watching the winter light fade from the windows. Little Ray put his head on my knee. She was wrong about some things, right about others. I had compared her to Sarah. Had kept this place frozen in time like a museum to my first marriage. Had maybe been so focused on maintaining the past that I'd forgotten to build a present. But none of that changed what she'd signed. None of that justified the betrayal. Some marriages end in fire, some in ice. This one was ending in paperwork and property lines and the cold calculation of who owned what. That night, Marcus came by with boxes of documents. We spread them across the kitchen table. My soil records, his survey photos, Patricia Brennan's files from Illinois, the equipment board regulations. Hearing set for March 29th, I told him. 8 a.m., County AG building. Well, that's 2 days before your loan renewal. I know. Marcus studied me. You thought about what happens if we lose? If we lose, Cody gets to claim I'm in breach of the lease. Bank might call the loan based on additional liabilities. I'd have to sell to pay off the debt. And if we win, lease gets voided. I refinance solo. Diane gets whatever the divorce settlement says. I paused. She came by today. We talked. How'd that go? Like pulling off a bandage that's been stuck too long. Hurt like hell, but maybe it needed to happen. Marcus pulled 2 beers from his coat pocket, opened them, slid one across. To pulling off bandages. We drank in silence. Outside, the March wind rattled the windows. Not winter anymore, not quite spring. That in-between time, when the ground's too soft to work but too frozen to plant, when you're just waiting for conditions to change. You scared? Marcus asked. Terrified. Good. Means you're paying attention. He tapped his beer against mine. But Ray, I've known you 50 years. You've got the documentation, you've got the truth, and you've got me. That enough? It's gonna have to be. The Marion County Agriculture Building sat on the edge of town, concrete block construction from the 70s, American flag snapping in the March wind. I arrived at 7:30, Marcus beside me, both of us carrying boxes of documentation. The hearing room was small. Folding table at the front for the board members, 2 tables facing it for the parties, rows of plastic chairs for observers. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The place smelled like burnt coffee and copy paper. Sarah Chen, the investigator, was setting up a laptop at the front table. 2 other board members sat with her, an older man I recognized from the co-op, and a younger woman with USDA credentials on a lanyard. At 7:40, Cody arrived with his attorney. Expensive suit, leather briefcase, the kind of lawyer who charges $400 an hour. Cody wore a sport coat and jeans, going for the honest farm dealer look. He didn't make eye contact with me. At 7:50, the chairs behind us started filling. Earl and Jerry from the grain elevator, Rita from the bank, Pastor Glenn, a dozen other farmers I'd known for decades. Come to watch, come to witness. At 7:58, Diane slipped in the back, sat alone. Our eyes met for a second, then she looked away. Sarah Chen called the hearing to order at 8 sharp. This is a formal review under Iowa Code Section 542.8, Agricultural Equipment Suitability Standards. Mr. Hutchins has filed a complaint alleging that Brennan Ag Equipment violated suitability verification requirements in the lease of a John Deere 8R tractor. Mr. Brennan, your attorney may present your position first. The lawyer stood, smooth and practiced. Thank you. This is a straightforward case of buyer's remorse, dressed up as a regulatory complaint. Mr. Raymond Hutchins and his wife Diane entered into a voluntary lease agreement for farm equipment. Both parties signed willingly. The equipment was delivered per the contract terms. Now, Mr. Hutchins, for personal reasons we won't speculate about, is attempting to void a legal agreement using spurious claims about soil conditions. He pulled out documents. The lease clearly states that the lessee, Mr. Hutchins, represents that the property is suitable for the equipment specified. By signing, he made that representation. Brennan Ag Equipment relied on the customer's own assessment of his land, as is standard industry practice. Sarah Chen looked at me. Mr. Hutchins, your response? I stood, felt the weight of every eye in the room. My hands shook slightly, but my voice came out steady. Ma'am, I've worked this land for 63 years. I've taken soil samples every spring and fall since 1964, filed every test with the USDA for conservation compliance. I know this ground like I know my own hands. And I opened the first binder, passed copies to the board. These are soil composition records for the South 40, the section where that tractor was delivered. Tama silty clay loam, water table 8 to 12 feet. Maximum safe load bearing capacity, 18,000 pounds per axle when dry, less when saturated. Next binder. These are the specifications for a John Deere 8R tractor. Empty weight, 22,000 pounds, fully loaded, 25,000. That's 7,000 pounds over safe capacity for my soil type. I heard someone in the audience whisper. Kept going. This isn't buyer's remorse. This is a dealer selling equipment he knew, or should have known, would damage the property. And I passed forward the photos Marcus had taken. This is tile line damage caused by the tractor during delivery, $500 minimum to repair. These drainage lines were installed in 1982 by my father and me. 42 years of proper function, destroyed in one day. Sarah Chen studied the photos, passed them to the other board members. Brennan, did you or your staff verify soil conditions prior to this lease? Cody's lawyer started to answer, but Chen held up her hand. I'm asking Mr. Brennan directly. Cody stood, that salesman smile trying to work. We rely on the customer's assessment of their own property. Standard practice across the industry. Mr. Hutchins is an experienced farmer. We trusted his judgment about what equipment his land could handle. Did you ask to see his soil records? Well, no. But did you request any documentation about load-bearing capacity? That's not typically part of... Did you in any way verify suitability before writing a $240,000 lease? The smile died. No, ma'am. But again, industry standard. Section 542.8 doesn't care about industry standard, Mr. Brennan. It requires verification. She turned to me. Mr. Hutchins, were these soil records available if Mr. Brennan had requested them? Yes, ma'am. I filed them with USDA every year. They're public record for anyone who asks. Any dealer doing proper due diligence would have checked. Marcus stood. May I add something? Chen nodded. I'm Marcus Webb, licensed surveyor, retired. I've also done some research on Mr. Brennan's background. He pulled out Patricia's documents. In 2022, Brennan Farm Equipment in Galesburg, Illinois, had its license suspended for nearly identical violations. Brennan sold heavy equipment to an elderly farmer without verifying soil suitability, caused significant property damage. The state board ruled it was negligent business practice. Cody's face went white. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. Furthermore, Marcus continued, Mr. Brennan has a pattern of targeting older farmers, building relationships with their spouses, and leveraging those relationships for equipment sales. I have documentation from Illinois showing objection. The lawyer stood. This is character assassination, not relevant to the current complaint. It's pattern evidence, Marcus said calmly. Shows Mr. Brennan knew better and did it anyway. Sarah Chin held up her hand. I'll allow it as context. She looked at Cody. Mr. Brennan, did you know about Mr. Hutchins' soil conditions before writing this lease? The customer signed. That's not what I asked. Did you know this soil type couldn't safely support this equipment? Silence stretched. The fluorescent lights hummed. Someone in the back row coughed. Answer the question, Mr. Brennan. Cody looked at his lawyer, at the board, at the rows of farmers watching him. The specifications were available if someone looked. Did you look? No. Why not? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. We all knew why. Because he'd been too busy romancing my wife and planning how to subdivide my land. Because the equipment sale was just a tool to get closer to the real prize. Sarah Chin closed her folder. The board will recess for deliberation. We'll reconvene in 30 minutes. The hallway was cold. I stood by the window, watching March wind push clouds across the sky. Marcus brought coffee from a vending machine. It tasted like hot water and regret. That went well, he said. You think? Ray, you buried him. The soil records, the damage photos, the Illinois history, he's done. Pastor Glenn came over, gripped my shoulder. Proud of you, Ray, keeping your composure in there. When Diane appeared at my elbow, voice low. Ray, I'm sorry, I didn't know about Illinois. I didn't know he'd done this before. I looked at her, saw the woman I'd married, the woman who'd betrayed me, the woman Cody had used. All at once, all true. I know, I said, then quieter. I'm sorry, too, for making you feel like a replacement. We both made mistakes. Yeah, but only one of us signed away the farm. She nodded, eyes wet, walked away. 30 minutes later, Sarah Chin called us back in. The room went silent. She stood, read from a prepared statement. After reviewing the evidence, this board finds that Brennan Ag Equipment violated Iowa Code Section 542(8) by failing to verify land suitability prior to executing a lease agreement for heavy agricultural equipment. Mr. Hutchins' comprehensive soil records, filed with USDA for over 40 years, clearly demonstrate that the property cannot safely support the equipment in question. Furthermore, photographic evidence shows property damage has already occurred. She looked at Cody. Mr. Brennan, your pattern of similar violations in Illinois suggests this was not an oversight, but a deliberate disregard for proper business practices. The hammer fell. The equipment lease dated November 18, 2024, is hereby declared void. Brennan Ag Equipment will remove the tractor from Mr. Hutchins' property within 48 hours. Additionally, this board is referring Mr. Brennan's conduct to the Iowa Department of Agriculture for license review. Potential penalties include suspension or revocation. Cody's attorney started to object, but Chin cut him off. This hearing is concluded. I walked out of that building into March sunshine. Real warmth for the first time in months. The wind still had teeth, but you could smell it now. That earth smell underneath the cold, the promise that ground would soften, that planting season was coming. Marcus shook my hand on the steps. Congratulations, brother. Couldn't have done it without you. Yeah, you could have. Just would have taken longer. He grinned. Buy me a beer sometime. And Earl and Jerry and the others came out, each stopping to grip my hand, nod, say the things men say when they're proud but don't have fancy words for it. Rita hugged me quick, whispered, come see me tomorrow about that refinancing. Pastor Glenn was last. You did good, Ray. Kept your dignity through the whole thing. Doesn't feel like winning. Winning never does when it costs you something. But you saved the land. That's what mattered. Cody came out with his lawyer, walked fast to his truck, didn't look at anyone. The F-350 peeled out of the parking lot, spraying gravel. Someone in the crowd laughed, low and satisfied. Diane stood by her car, keys in hand, not getting in, just standing there. I walked over. I'm not fighting the divorce, she said. I'll sign whatever you need me to sign. Rita's drawing up the papers. You'll get what's fair. I don't want fair. I want... She stopped, shook her head. It doesn't matter what I want. The condo in Des Moines. Real estate career. That's still there if you want it. Without Cody, yeah, she laughed, bitter. Turns out I was the equipment he was really leasing. Should have checked the fine print. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the only true thing I had left. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. Just hope it's real next time. She nodded, got in her car, drove away. I watched until the taillights disappeared, then got in my truck. Little Ray was waiting in the passenger seat, tail thumping. I scratched his ears, started the engine, drove home. The next morning, Rita met me at First Farmers Bank with paperwork spread across her desk. Okay, Ray, here's what we've got. Your credit is perfect, your payment history is immaculate, and with the lease voided, you have no outstanding liens on the property. She slid forms across. I can approve refinancing the full loan amount, solo borrower at your current rate, keeps your payment exactly the same. And what about the back 40? You still want to sell it? I thought about that. About the young couple, Jake and Emma, who'd come by last month asking about it. Emma pregnant, Jake talking about starting small, building slow, doing it right. Yeah, I said, but not to developers, to farmers. Rita smiled. Jake and Emma are pre-approved. They've been saving for 2 years. That sale will give you enough cushion to make repairs. Maybe even buy some of your own equipment, eventually. Good equipment, right size. I signed the refinancing papers, signed the agreement to sell the back 40, signed the divorce settlement papers the lawyer had drawn up, fair division of personal property, Diane keeping her car and her retirement account, me keeping the land and the house. Clean break? One more thing, Rita said. The board's decision yesterday. It's public record now. Word's going around. Cody's dealership posted a temporary closure sign this morning. He leaving town? If he's smart. She stood, shook my hand. Ray, what you did, standing up with documentation, doing it legally, keeping your head, that matters. People are going to remember. March became April. The tractor disappeared from my barn, neutral third-party hauler, no confrontation, just gone one morning like it had never been there. I spent a week repairing the tile line damage. Marcus helping, both of us working in that good, tired way you do when you're fixing something that matters. The ground warmed, 50s, then 60s. Then one morning I checked the soil thermometer, and it read 50 degrees at 6 inches. Planting temperature. I fired up my old Case IH, the one Dad bought in 1991. Not fancy, not new, but it knew this land, and this land knew it. The diesel engine caught smooth, blue smoke puffing into clear air. Jake and Emma came by that morning. She was showing now, hand resting on her belly while Jake talked about their plans. Gradual expansion, conservation practices, doing it right. My grandpa farmed over in Keokuk County, Jake said. Lost it in the 80s crisis. I always swore if I got the chance I'd do it different. Careful. Sustainable. That's the only way, I said. Land doesn't care about big dreams. Just ask if you're going to work it right or walk away. Emma smiled. We're not walking away, Mr. Hutchins. Call me Ray, and I know you're not. That's why I'm selling to you. They walked the back 40 together, Jake pointing at field corners, Emma talking about where they'd build. Young and hopeful, and exactly what this land needed next. By mid-April, I was planting. Corn first in the northeast 40 where the soil tests showed perfect pH 6, 8, same as always. The Case IH pulled the planter in straight lines, seeds dropping every 8 inches, life going in the ground. Marcus stopped by one afternoon with coffee, sat on the tailgate of his truck watching me work. You doing okay? He asked when I took a break. Yeah, better than okay, actually. Heard Cody's in Peoria now, working at a car dealership. Good luck to whoever buys from him. And Diane? Des Moines. Sold her first condo last week, sent me a text, said she was doing better. I drank the coffee, looked at the field. I think we both are. Apart. Marcus nodded. That's usually how it works. Some people aren't meant for the long haul together. Doesn't make either of them bad. Just wrong for each other. We sat quiet, watching the sun drop toward the horizon. A robin hopped along the fence line. Red-winged blackbirds called from the creek bottom. Spring sounds, old and new at the same time. You going to be lonely out here? Marcus asked. Got little Ray? Got you showing up with coffee? Got soil to test and crops to plant. I smiled. Loneliness is just quiet that scares you. This kind of quiet, I've been missing it. That evening, I sat on the porch with my mother's old field notebook. Started a new page, dated it April 15, 25. Wrote the weather, clear 62 degrees, south wind 5 to 10. Wrote the planting progress, northeast 40 complete, pH optimal, seed depth 2 inches. Continuing the record, the way Dad did, the way Grandpa did. Some people thought silence was surrender. Turned out it was just preparation. Turned out the quietest men keep the best records. I looked at Grandpa's surveying transit sitting on the porch table, brass catching the last light. Marcus had cleaned it up after we finished the tile repair. Said maybe I should keep it out here. Reminder of what we'd done, what we'd saved. The field stretched green toward the horizon. New growth pushing up through old ground. Jake and Emma's section already marked with stakes, their future taking shape on land that had held my family's past. Little Ray barked at something, probably a coyote in the far tree line. I called him back, and he came running, settled at my feet with a satisfied grunt. Tomorrow I'd plant the South 40, test the soil first like always, record the results, file them properly. Keep doing what I'd always done, Measure twice, work carefully, trust the dirt to tell the truth. They'd tried to take this from me, tried to use love and lies and legal documents, but you can't steal what's written in 60 years of careful records. Can't forge what's documented in soil samples and USDA files and the accumulated proof of a life lived right. The sun dropped below the tree line. The porch light came on automatically, yellow and warm. Inside, the house was quiet. My house now. No ghosts, no replacements. Just a man and his dog and the land that had always been the realest relationship he had. Some battles you win with noise. This one I won with receipts, a surveyor's eye, and my family's habit of writing everything down. But the real victory wasn't in the winning, it was in the staying. In the morning coffee and the soil tests and the field notebook that would outlast us all. The land remembers. And now it remembered I'd fought for it. That was enough. 3 weeks later, I sat on the porch at dawn with my coffee. The rain gauge showed 2 inches from last night's storm. Good for the seedlings. I opened the field notebook, wrote the date, the weather, the first reports of growth in the Northeast 40. Corn pushing through, tiny green flags in dark earth. Continuing the work, keeping the record. Marcus had driven this final boundary stake yesterday. Brass cap on top, coordinates marked, separating my land from Jake and Emma's section. We'd stood there in the evening light, 2 old men with surveying equipment, reestablishing what was whose. He didn't say much, didn't need to, just gripped my shoulder, nodded, drove home. The daffodils I'd planted on Sarah's grave were blooming now, yellow and bright against the gray stone. I'd gone out there last Sunday, told her about everything, the lease, the betrayal, the hearing, the land staying in farming hands. Told her I was sorry for trying to make Diane into her replacement, that I understood now you don't rebuild what's gone, you build something new, or you build nothing. The wind came up soft, carrying the smell of turned earth and distant rain. Little Ray lifted his head, ears pricked toward the barn where a nest of sparrows was raising young in the rafters. Life continuing in the quiet spaces between human drama. Cody's dealership sold at auction 2 weeks ago. Building bought by a seed company, equipment scattered to various buyers. Someone said Cody was in Peoria, selling cars. Same smile, different product. Some men never learn the difference between selling and stealing. Diane called once, brief and awkward, said she was dating someone from her real estate office, someone her own age who liked city life. Said she hoped I was doing okay. I told her I was. We hung up with nothing left to say. Sometimes that's how marriages end, not with fire, just with the quiet acknowledgement that you've run out of words. Jake and Emma's baby came last week, a boy. They stopped by to show him off, asked if I'd mind being honorary grandpa since their folks were back east. I held that child on my porch, 8 pounds of future, and said yes. The sun cleared the tree line, warming the boards under my feet. The fields stretched toward morning. My grandfather's transit sat beside me, brass catching the light. I'd teach Jake to use it someday. Pass down the precision. Some battles you win with noise. This one I won with receipts, a surveyor's tools, and 60 years of writing everything down. But the real victory wasn't in the winning, it was in the planting, in the staying, in the morning coffee and the rain gauge, in the field notebook that would outlast us all. The land remembers who loved it and who tried to sell it. And now I'd made sure it would remember right.